With Dustin Traylen of your Brockville Braves. Dustin, before Christmas, a tough one in Smith Falls, 4 seconds to go. The Bears pull one out. You start the new year, little rough game in Kempville. Very, very good performance there last Friday night. Maybe an egg on Sunday. What's gone down the last few games? I mean, you were 7 out of your last 10, and what's been going on?
Well, I think it's a little bit of a consistency issue we had, which has been remedied. We brought in some new talent here that is going to force players to continue to be accountable for every game that they play. And like I said, we won't be laying any eggs from here on out.
You said from the onset this year that you were certainly committed to winning, and you certainly have been. You certainly demonstrated that in what you just mentioned at the trade deadline, acquiring 3 players. What do they bring to the table?
Well, I think, if you want to start with Jacob Cuffley, Jacob's going to be a very good defenseman for us moving forward. Very, very mobile defenseman, skates very, very well. He's a kid that should solidify our back end in future years. Stu Fearhaller is a gentleman who is a captain. Again, one of those leaders that we've brought in the dressing room to kind of, lead the younger guys and lead some of the older guys. And Chris Chaddock is probably, from dynamic available forwards at the deadline, he was in the top 2. So we're very happy to have all 3 of them, and hopefully we can continue winning with them.
Yeah, I guess Chris with a game-winning goal Wednesday night in the Nepean, so some instant impact. Mr. Cuffley, obviously not an immediate situation.
Well, like I said, with Jacob, we've been trying to move for him for a couple of months, just based on the fact, you can't really find too many 6'2" mobile defense right shots. They don't grow on trees, but we seem to have plucked one. And with Chris, one thing you'll notice about Chris tonight is his skating ability, and his release is very, very good. So again, those are 2 boys, and you throw Stu in the mix. Those are the guys that we're leaning on down the stretch.
Pembroke Lumber Kings here tonight. What do you expect there?
Well, you know what? They're a team that's battling for a playoff spot. So every game from now to the end of the year for these boys is it's game 7 for them. So similar to Nepean, they're fighting for everything, and should be a very, very intense game, and should be a very, very close game.
You got to go back to, of course, the star this year, Hank Johnson. I don't know from watching Brave games over the years that I've seen a more consistent performance to date. I think it was just the one rough game against Carleton Place. Wow, you really plucked a good one there.
He's okay. Like he's like I said, I love talking about Hank. What him and Mike have been able to do for this team. Not having anyone at the beginning of the year to having what we have going down the stretch. I would be hard pressed not to vote for him as an MVP candidate in the league. He's really one of those. He's a piece that if we didn't have, I don't know if we'd be this successful. So we love them both, and God bless Hank.
Yeah, and I mean You've seen him in the Chowder Cup toward the latter portion of July, and really at that point you really didn't have a goaltender, no returnees. Is that correct?
Yeah, we were a little bit pressed for time, and obviously Bo had made a decision to go to the Quebec Major Junior League, and it was basically a last-ditch effort, and he was on his way. Hank was to a different organization, and we were able to convince him to come to Brockville to be our guy, and probably the best decision I've ever made.
Thanks for doing this, Dustin. Good luck tonight.
Thanks so much.
Dustin Traylen of your Brockville Braves.